March 8, 2003. The Springcroft pub in Baillieston hums with life. Families sharing meals, cheers erupting as Scotland's rugby team fights on the screen. Amid the chatter, no one clocks a man in a grey hoodie and jeans slipping through the door, a crumpled black plastic bag oddly perched on his head. He moves like a predator, zeroing in on Billy McPhee, a stocky enforcer for crime boss Tam McGraw, perched at the bar, eyes locked on the rugby. In a flash, the stranger whips out a long-bladed knife and plunges it into McPhee's neck. Chaos explodes, kids scream, glasses shatter, as 27 vicious stabs tear through McPhee, his blood pooling on the floor. The killer coolly bends down, yanks the blade free and strolls out, unruffled, as if it were just another night. This wasn't a bar fight, it was a calculated execution. Fingers point to Mark Clinton, a man who lived by the blade and once bragged that stabbing was the easiest thing in the world. Arrested and hauled to trial, he walked free after just one day. How did he dodge justice? And what forged this feared figure into one of Scotland's most notorious gangland enforcers? Welcome to Crime Pulse, where we peel back the layers of the UK's darkest criminal worlds. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join our crew diving deep into these gritty tales. Like, share, and turn on notifications to stay locked in for every pulse-pounding story. Buckle up. We're about to unravel the life and bloody end of Mark Clinton, a legend forged in Glasgow's unforgiving shadows. Picture a place where life's odds are stacked against you from the start, a neighborhood where poverty bites hard and survival demands a different kind of strength. In January 2006, a Scotsman newspaper report laid bare the harsh reality of Calton, a Glasgow enclave where kids are 3 times more likely to face heart disease, 4 times more likely to end up in a hospital bed, and 10 times more likely to grow up in a home without work compared to the city's wealthier west side. A BBC Scotland piece drove the point home. Fueled by poor diets, crime, alcohol and drugs, life expectancy in Calton clocks in at a shocking 53.9 years, lower than some war-torn corners of Iraq or the Gaza Strip, far below Glasgow's average of 69 or Scotland's 78. For Mark Clinton, born into this unforgiving world, those grim statistics weren't just numbers, they were a prophecy he'd never outrun. Yet to those who knew him, Mark was more than a product of Calton's mean streets. A lifelong friend who shared time with him behind the walls of Barlinnie prison paints a different picture, a guy who bled green and white as a die-hard Celtic fan. Always quick with a laugh and fiercely loyal to those he held dear. He never threw his weight around with friends or family, never made them feel the edge of his fearsome reputation. Like so many from Britain's tough working-class towns, Mark wrestled with demons. Alcohol and substance abuse shadowed his steps. But the media's monster label, that missed the mark. He was a man, not a myth, shaped by a father he looked up to and a life of struggle. Even in prison, where he managed his diabetes with quiet resilience, Mark showed a human side. His legend, though, was born on Calton's rough corners, where street fights and raw confrontations carved out his name as a force to be reckoned with. As Mark's story unfolds, those early battles in Calton's shadows set the stage for a life defined by violence, a path where a single wrong move could turn a man from hunter to hunted. Step into the brutal world of Glasgow's Underworld, where Mark Clinton's name became synonymous with unflinching nerve. In candid talks with Donald McIntyre, featured in that same 2006 documentary alongside Paul Ferris, Mark didn't shy away from his past. He spoke of slicing through those who dared cross him or disrespect his father. Vicious, up-close attacks that left no room for mercy. In one chilling clash, he gutted a rival's belly. In another, he battered an enemy with his weapon of choice, a gleaming blade. These weren't just fights, they were statements, etched in blood on Calton's streets. Word of such savage acts spread like wildfire, earning Mark a reputation that echoed Paul Ferris's own rise, a man who'd unleash hell without a second thought if you stepped out of line. This kind of violence, raw, personal, face-to-face, takes a rare breed. It's not the distant orders of politicians who start wars from plush offices, untouched by the chaos they unleash. No, this is close-quarters combat, where a split second can flip you from predator to prey. Mark knew this truth intimately. You needed steel in your gut and ice in your veins to survive. Most lack that edge, but Mark, he had it in spades. That's why crime bosses sought him out. a prized enforcer for their dirtiest jobs, whether it was doling out punishment beatings, collecting debts with a menacing glare, or, when the stakes were highest, taking lives. In Glasgow's shadowy underworld, Mark Clinton wasn't just another thug. He was a rare and deadly force, forged in the crucible of Calton's streets. In the gritty heart of Glasgow's Blackhill, Paul Ferris grew up small in stature but massive in nerve, a name that still echoes through the city's dark corners. Known as much for his later reinvention as a best-selling author and businessman as for his infamous past, Ferris was a force of nature in his youth. With a blade in hand, he carved his legend, fearlessly taking on the Walsh clan and the notorious Ater family, whose reputation sent shivers through Blackhill and beyond. His brutal, no-holds-barred attacks on the brothers didn't just win fights, they won him a seat at the table of Glasgow's most feared crime lord, Arthur Thompson Sr. But trouble brewed when a rift, sparked by Thompson's son, Arthur Jr., set off a deadly chain reaction. Arthur Jr., along with two of Ferris's close mates, Bobby Glover and Joe Hanlon, met gruesome ends in a string of horrific murders that shook the underworld. Ferris stood trial for Arthur Jr.'s killing, but walked free, though the law clipped his wings with a 10-year sentence for weapons charges, originally a 15-year stretch, cut to 7 on appeal. In a bizarre courtroom moment, Judge Henry Black QC, red-faced and humbled, had to recall Ferris to correct the sentence, admitting 10 years was the legal max. That was Ferris, a man who even made judges sweat. As Ferris's star rose and fell, another figure was carving his own path through Glasgow's shadows, a man whose fate would intertwine with Ferris's in a prison cell, sparking a bond that would ripple through the city's streets. Mark Clinton's life was a revolving door of prison cells, each stint a testament to a path paved with both petty and perilous crimes. From small-time driving offences to heavy-hitting weapons charges and even whispers of murder, Mark's rap sheet told a story of a man deep in Glasgow's underworld. To understand his journey, you've got to know the Scottish court system's quirks. Unlike England, Scotland's 140-day rule means if your case doesn't hit the courtroom in time, you can walk free on bail. This rule would later play a pivotal role in Mark's story, but that's a tale for later. For now, picture him in the early 2000s, locked up in the grim confines of a Scottish prison, likely Barlinnie, after a stint in England's tough dispersal system. It was here, in the isolation of the block, that Mark crossed paths with Paul Ferris, the Blackhill legend fresh off his own battles with the law. Word has it, during a phone visit, Ferris left a stash of canteen goods by Mark's door. A small gesture, but in the brutal world of cons, it was a mark of respect, a sign of solidarity between two of Glasgow's hardest. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the spark that would ignite chaos on the streets, as these two men from different corners of the city's underbelly joined forces against one of Scotland's slipperiest villains. In the early 2000s, Tam McGraw, known as the Licensee, ruled Glasgow's underworld like a kingpin straight out of a crime flick. His empire was built on dirty deals, extortion, drug trafficking, you name it. With a fortune pegged at £10 million, he owned security firms, taxi companies, and properties scattered across Scotland and Ireland. His drug game alone was worth a staggering £14 million, but McGraw's real power came from his shady ties to corrupt cops, letting him dodge trouble with a slickness that made him untouchable. Almost. That kind of influence came at a cost, painting a target on his back and earning him enemies across Glasgow's rough streets. By 2002, the city was a powder keg, and McGraw was sweating bullets, paranoid that Paul Ferris, fresh out of prison, was gunning for his throne. His fears set off a chain of events that would torch his empire and drag Mark Clinton into a murder trial that shook the underworld. As tensions boiled over, Glasgow's streets became a battlefield, with betrayals and blades sparking a wave of violence that no one, not even McGraw, could escape unscathed. The first shot in this underworld war was a £100,000 hit McGraw put out on Paul Ferris. Big mistake. The hired muscle turned out to be Ferris's pals, who pocketed a £10,000 deposit, spilled the plan to Paul, and threw a party with McGraw's money, rubbing salt in the wound by inviting his rivals. Humiliated, McGraw's next move was even bolder. He and his top enforcer, Billy McPhee, ambushed T.C. Campbell, a man wrongly jailed for the 1980s ice cream war murders. They came at him with golf clubs and blades, aiming to silence him for good. Rumors swirled McGraw was behind the fire that pinned Campbell in prison. But Campbell, a seasoned street fighter, fought tooth and nail, surviving a brutal beating that left him with a fractured skull and a hospital bed full of stitches. The attack, witnessed by dozens on a Glasgow estate, lit a fire under the underworld, with many believing McGraw was tying up loose ends. Not long after, McGraw himself got a taste of his own medicine. On a rare step out from his fortress-like home, he was jumped and stabbed repeatedly, his body armor barely saving his life. The papers pinned it on Ferris, but word on the street, passed on by Clinton's crew, pointed to Mark Clinton as the blade-wielding attacker. Truth is, plenty had reasons to take a swing at McGraw, so who really did it remains a murky debate. Over the next year, McGraw's inner circle took hit after hit. His enforcers, including his right-hand man, Billy McPhee, were picked off or bloodied, crumbling his once iron grip. Among them, McPhee's death stood out, with prosecutors eyeing Mark Clinton as the killer, setting the stage for a showdown that would test the city's toughest. On March 8, 2003, the Springcroft pub in Baillieston was alive with the hum of families enjoying a meal, eyes glued to Scotland's rugby team on the screen. It felt like a safe haven, a slice of normal life, until a man in a grey hoodie and jeans walked in. Without a flicker of hesitation, he zeroed in on a stocky figure, Billy McPhee, lost in the game. In a heartbeat, he pulled a 6-inch blade and struck, each stab a cold, calculated blow. The crowd froze as horror unfolded, McPhee collapsing under injuries too gruesome for YouTube's censors. This wasn't your typical Underworld hit. The sheer nerve to strike in a pub packed with kids and families was jaw-dropping, a move so bold it defied belief. McPhee, a key player in Tam McGraw's crew, thought he was untouchable, lulled by the cozy setting. That false sense of safety cost him his life. The killing sent shockwaves through Glasgow's underworld. Just 4 months earlier, McPhee had dodged a hit involving a sawn-off shotgun, but this time there was no escape. His death, tied to his role in McGraw's shady dealings, wasn't a one-off. 2 other McGraw allies, Trevor Lawson and Gordon Ross, had been knifed to death in the past year. But this pub murder stood out for its audacity. The police turned their spotlight on Mark Clinton, a known friend of Paul Ferris and a suspect in an earlier attack on McGraw. They figured only a handful of Glasgow's toughest could pull off such a precise, fearless hit. Walking calmly into a den of criminals, striking vital organs around McPhee's protective vest and slipping away. Mark, with his blade-sharp skills and ice-cold nerve, topped their list. Other suspects? They just didn't have the chops. Arrested and charged, Mark caught a break with Scotland's 140-day rule. If your trial doesn't start within that window, you're out on bail. He walked free, but McGraw wasn't done. With his heavies in tow, he cornered Mark, demanding he set up Ferris for a hit or face new witnesses that'd lock him away for 25 years. Mark, loyal to the core, shut McGraw down flat. The case against him crumbled when a key witness wavered, describing the killer as slim with a hooked nose, not Mark's stocky build. Whispers suggested an outsider, maybe from Liverpool or even the Middle East, but the truth stayed buried. Detective Chief Inspector Brian Giss vowed to keep hunting McPhee's killer, insisting no case is ever truly closed. The Springcroft murder remains one of Glasgow's darkest unsolved mysteries, a bloody testament to the underworld's ruthless code. But the fallout from that night didn't end with a cold case. For Mark Clinton, the spotlight only grew hotter, pulling him deeper into a world where enemies lurked in every shadow. Theories swirled about the Springcroft hit. Some pointed to a hired gun from Liverpool or even the Middle East. Others swore it was Mark Clinton's handiwork. Those in the know kept their lips sealed, leaving the truth locked tight. Rumors even flew that McGraw paid Paul Ferris a fortune to call off the dogs, but like most tabloid tales, it was all smoke, no fire. McGraw himself faded from Glasgow streets, splitting time between Tenerife and home until a heart attack took him out on July 30th, 2007. For Mark, the collapsed murder case was a fleeting victory. The police and underworld weren't ready to let him walk free. Cops tried pinning a drug charge on him, smelling blood, while old enemies circled, hungry for payback. One night, seeking escape from the heat, Mark hit Leg & Co., a Glasgow strip joint. A street brawl erupted. Whether a random scrap or a targeted hit, no one could confirm. Drunk or high, even a titan like Mark was vulnerable, left fighting for his life in a coma for 3 days. But he was made of tougher stuff, clawing his way back to the streets, no doubt with revenge burning in his chest. Trouble followed him like a shadow. Later, a feud with a crime family over a security contract landed him back in jail for threatening developers. Mark's life spiraled, dragged down by crippling alcoholism and drug addiction. Paranoia took root, turning his world into a maze of threats. When Glasgow street photographer Brian Anderson visited his flat for a news piece, Mark revealed a chilling setup. Lethal booby traps, rigged to stop anyone who dared break in. It was a stark glimpse into the stress that haunted him. Far from the glamorized crime sagas of movies, the underworld's reality, deception, treachery, violence, offered no happy endings. Mark's story ended in January 2019 at just 48 in a death the police called non-suspicious. For a man who lived on the edge, it was a quiet exit, but his shadow looms large over Glasgow streets. Mark Clinton's name hit Glasgow streets like a thunderclap, branded by the media as Scotland's most dangerous man. His world was one of raw violence and deep ties to the city's shadowy underworld, a place where survival meant playing by brutal rules. Yet behind the headlines, Mark was no cartoon villain. To his loved ones, he was a complex soul, flawed, fierce, but fiercely loyal. His path, like so many drawn into crime's grip, was stained with tragedy, a half-century journey through a treacherous maze of betrayal and bloodshed. Some will point to his violent past and say he doesn't deserve tears, but his friends and family see a different truth. Life deals uneven hands, and Mark played the one he was given. To them, he was a good man, keeping his darkest deeds within the underworld's code, never letting them spill onto those he held dear. So, what did you think of Mark's story? Drop your thoughts in the comments, whether you knew him as a friend, foe, or just a legend. Let me know what you made of this documentary, and if there's another tale you want me to dig into, toss it in the comments. I'm already working on some juicy topics for the next video. And if you enjoyed this, hit that like button, subscribe and turn on notifications. It means the world. Thanks for watching.